Welcome, Black Hollywood Live fans. On today's Justice is Served, we talk Jordan Edwards killer indicted, 40 Glocc nabbed, and more celebrity legal news. Stay tuned for more.
You are tuned into Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Hey, what's up, legal fans? We got a little Vic Mensa playing in the background. We'll discuss that case and more celebrity legal news today. Again, my name is Shaka Smith. You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong. I'm joined here by my wonderful co-host, Yemi Abayomi. Where can they find you?
Yemi Abayomi, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ayemyem.
That was pretty good pronunciation, right?
Not so much, but I'm used to it, and I'll gladly correct until we get it right.
Well, I'll have to work on it. Well, we had a spate of a lot of different legal news, but I guess we'll start with some of the more positive or somewhat positive ones. Jordan Edwards killer indicted. I guess we talked about it earlier. Jordan Edwards was the young kid at a party where the police were called. He and several friends were in a car that was driving away from the police, and he was shot and killed. You want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, this was some good news to hear. Obviously, this is just that he's only been indicted. We haven't gone through a trial or any sorts of convictions or anything like that. But I think it's at least a first step. Initially, in this case, this was Jordan Edwards. He was a young kid, I think about 14 years old, had gone to a party. There was loud music. Him and his some siblings and friends decided to leave the party as responsible for such a young age. Actually, decided to leave the party. And Jordan Edwards was struck through the passenger side window. And initially in the police report, Roy Oliver had said that the kids were driving towards him aggressively and he feared for his life and therefore shot. But then it came to light, I think, via his body cam.
Yeah, that they were driving away from him.
That they were driving away from him, and it's possible that there wasn't really a reason for him to fear for his life or to shoot into a car that was leaving.
Yeah, I was. The prosecutor here seemed. I guess they had arrested and charged him before they even went to the grand jury with a couple of counts of, I think, with assault with a deadly weapon used by a police officer. So it was actually kind of heartwarming in a way to hear the prosecutor be so vigorous about this and the way that their office is going to prosecute this case. Yeah,
no, they seemed very much wanting to kind of reassure the public that, we're not trying to brush anything under the rug. We're not trying to hide anything. We want to be transparent, and we want to make sure that the interest of justice is served, whatever that outcome may be. But we're going to do a full investigation and make sure that whatever justice is, that comes to light.
Yeah, I think it's positive to actually hear that from a DA's office. I think it goes a long way for community relations. So.
Yeah, and I like the fact. I mean, the charges are not just aggravated assault, but he's also been hit with a murder charge. Yeah. So they're not really playing games or anything like that.
They're not watering it down.
Exactly.
Well, more celebrity legal news now. We have a spate, a roundup. We got Aaron Carter, 40 Glocc, Venus Williams, Ryan Lochte, Vic Mensa. So actually, we'll go to Venus Williams because I guess we're going to continue. We had talked last week about how zealous the lawyer seemed to be on the other side, and it obviously came to light. It seems like he now wants, in the wake of finding out she was lawfully in an intersection, he wants phone records to see whether or not she was on the phone, even though cops had concluded at the time in the police report that the phone played no role in this accident.
That's true, but I actually don't know how did the cops conclude that that wasn't at issue? I mean, did they have access to the cell phone records? Did they have video footage? Did she just verbally say that the phone wasn't involved? I was minding my own business and stuck in the intersection. So I actually never really understood how they came to that conclusion. Yeah. The video that has come out now, and I think it's a little bit of a stretch, but in the video that's come out now, you see Venus Williams driving down the road, and her arm is on the side of the window. Her window is down, and there aren't. So it's possible that she could have been talking on a cell phone at the time. But I know as I drive, I constantly kind of put my arm out the window or lean my arm, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm on the phone. And I think even with the video footage, you still can't see her hand.
And they've slowed it down to even look, and you can't see.
You can't see anything. But as you mentioned, the attorney for the deceased, is being very aggressive and wants to see not only phone records, but any mobile devices that may have been in the car.
And you would imagine she's probably got several phones, perhaps her number, so she can just provide anyone. But and then they also want to get her how many medications she may have taken 72 hours prior. I thought this lawyer is really trying to latch onto something here. What do you think about that?
I think well, as lawyers, we're meant to be zealous advocates for our clients, and I guess that's what he's doing. I think in this case, you have a tragedy where someone's lost their life. You have a widow now, and then you also have a defendant with very deep pockets, and I think it might be a stretch, and they might be pulling and grasping at straws, but they're going to grasp and see what they can do. And the more they kind of put pressure on her in that way, you know what? Sometimes to just make it go away, you might just want to go ahead and settle to put it behind you. You don't want to drag things out. Or sometimes, you might want to say, no, I'm not going to, if I let myself do this once, or let someone kind of drag me into this once, people will continuously do this, and I'm going to use this as a point to stand up for myself and defend myself. So maybe it goes forward, maybe it doesn't. But
yeah, it seems like he's reaching. As lawyers, we can't guarantee any outcomes. I wonder if he said, hey, this one's in the bag, we'll get this one, and now he's kind of scrambling.
I think to the extent that you harass the people, I think people, one, with money, they don't want to be dragged down into lawsuits. It's a waste of their time, and sometimes you just want to throw money at the problem and make it go away.
Yeah.
So I think to the extent that these people can kind of pester, and okay, I want phone records, I want medications, I want to know where you were going, I want everything.
Yeah, and the judge may not approve it all. The judge may say, look, you've had enough, now you're reaching, you're going beyond what I believe is reasonable. So we'll see where this ends up, but it's looking good for Venus, I guess.
Yeah, when I saw the video, at first I was just like, how could an accident like this happen based off of the description that I read?
Yeah.
When I saw the video, it was, that car was coming at a pretty good clip into Venus's car. So the videos kind of, to me, helped Venus's case more so than the estate's.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. We'll certainly, if there's a resolution, finally, we'll bring that to the story, to the show. Now we also have Aaron Carter, who's been in the news, out of the blue. I hadn't heard his name in quite some time, but it seems like over the weekend, in a bizarre story, really, he was seen driving down. I believe it was Georgia.
He's in a city outside of Atlanta, yeah.
So he's in Georgia, and he's driving down, I guess, somewhat erratically or what have you, but he pulls over to an AutoZone, and he initially says to get a tire. It was a flat tire, to get a tire, but AutoZone doesn't sell tires or do realignments.
He was there. The police department's in Habersham County. It's about 90 miles outside of Atlanta, and I think he had a show in Kansas. He had a show somewhere that night. But for whatever reason, he was driving 90 miles outside of Atlanta, and people had called in reporting a vehicle that had been swerving on the roads. And so at some point, he pulled into this AutoZone, and the cops found the car there and arrested him for DUI and possession of marijuana.
And also with the girlfriend, Madison. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so she also had some drug-related charges. His excuse was that, no, I wasn't swerving, I'm completely sober, but the alignment of the car is, the car is out of alignment, and that's why I came to this AutoZone, and that's why I was swerving.
Yeah, and he wanted them to, I guess he said he was looking for a tire for them to fix the alignment, but they don't even do that, so.
And they were saying that, his his legs were shaking, his eyes were bloodshot, he was talking to himself and couldn't really hold himself up straight, so he looked to be under the influence of something.
And he refused, I guess, a DUI. Not a DUI, but he refused to be tested.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, and then I guess he came out with this whole statement. Did you get a chance to look at the statement that he came out with?
Yeah, I did.
In the third person, it was.
Oh, wait, was it in the third person?
It was in the third person.
No, I didn't. I just assumed someone wrote it. No. I just thought someone from his staff released a statement.
Well, yeah, apparently the internet was abuzz that it was him writing in his note on his iPhone, and then he posted it in the third person.
Oh, interesting. I just assumed it was someone handling his Twitter account.
And so it started a little bit of a familial row between Aaron and Nick Carter.
Well, so I was reading on Twitter that Nick Carter had posted, and I rolled my eyes when I saw it. Nick Carter had posted a note saying, you know, I love you. I'm here for you. If you need anything, help me. And as soon as I read that, I thought, why are you posting this on social media? If anything, call your brother and let him know these things. But why are you posting it? And then I mean, I appreciated Aaron's response. He was like, if you cared, you would call me.
Oh, so you missed the other back and forth then. So Nick, so apparently Nick's wife also after that tweeted that they didn't have his number and to have Madison give them the number, which Nick retweeted. So I guess they didn't have his phone number. But hopefully, family-wise, everything will work out. But it looks like these charges are going to stick because they did find the marijuana.
Yeah, and then, you know, the visual evidence as well.
Yeah, the mugshot, unfortunately we don't have it here, but the mugshot, he certainly looked quite out of it. So,
to say the least.
But he did a tearful sort of interview on Entertainment Tonight, and, you know, he said he doesn't have a drug problem and everything's fine, and, you know, he's just been suffering from the anxiety, and he smoked the marijuana 6 hours before.
So did he specifically say, I don't have a drug problem, omitting that he might have an alcohol problem?
He said he barely drinks. He said, you know, he gets ill when he drinks, so he might have a sip here or two, but he can barely enjoy an IPA.
So he says he wasn't under the influence at all, or does he admit that he was under the influence of marijuana?
No, I believe he said he smoked the marijuana 6 to 7 hours prior to driving.
I don't know, if a photo can say 1,000 words, then that photo looked like he was under the influence.
Yeah, we'll make sure we put it up if we have any updates next week, so people can make their own judgments. But it does look like the marijuana charge will definitely stick. So, and then 40 Glocc now. This was another interesting case. You hear you are a successful up and coming rapper, and you're nabbed in a prostitution ring back in February. Tell us a little bit more about this.
So I whenever I read these articles, I always think, wow, people are really out there living some very interesting lives. That, you know, you might be surprised to hear about. But yeah, in the case of 40 Glocc, he was recently arrested on 2 counts of promoting prostitution and 1 count of inducement to practice prostitution.
Yeah.
And so basically what happened in this case is that an undercover cop had reached out to a woman on a website called
Backpage.
Backpage.com. And
well,
so
let's not give him too much promotion here.
True. And so 40 Glocc had dropped off this lady to meet the client. Yeah. And when this woman was dropped off, you know, the police officer revealed that he was an undercover cop, but it turned out her Bluetooth was still on. And so at some point, I guess 40 Glocc realized that the cover was blown. He darted off. They were able to stop the car, and so they arrested him in connection with the prostitution.
And I thought what was interesting is he had several cuts on his hands when they arrested him because he immediately tried to destroy the cell phones by hand so he wouldn't be tracked. So, I mean, he's watched a couple of
that doesn't wash away historical data.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
He's watched a couple of spy shows, it seems. But
I don't know. Sometimes the foolishness of these people, it floors me, but I should just stop being surprised.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like he's got definitely some serious charges to look at here. And so we'll have to update 40.
Just stay on the up and up. I don't understand these artists, rappers, creative people that are just getting into these random.
Regardless of what you've been in before, where you've come from, here you are now, right?
Yeah. What are you doing? Why are you involved in this?
Yeah, it's a little crazy. And we have Vic Mensa now. So Vic Mensa, this was actually. I almost felt a little bad for Vic Mensa here. So he gets pulled over in Beverly Hills for going through a stop sign or a stoplight. And he's got a concealed weapon with him, which he discloses to the officers. Thankfully, he was not hurt after such disclosure. And he says he's got a permit, but it turns out the permit's from another state. So, unfortunately, that doesn't fly here in California.
Right. But I thought, you know, it was fair. He got off fairly easily. He got 2 years of probation, and he can pay a $500 fine. Yeah. And then it will be put behind him. But otherwise, he would have been facing up to two years, possibly.
Yeah, and if he chooses not to pay the $500 fine, he can certainly opt for 2 days in jail. But I think he probably has the money. So I think he'll be good. And I guess in our last case, our favorite American athlete, Ryan Lochte, who caused a little bit of trouble in Rio, looks like that case has finally been resolved.
So he wasn't charged with anything. there was a question of whether he could be, found guilty of like lying to the police, or kind of something in the vein of like filing a false police report.
Yeah.
But what they found was that because he had told his story to the news, he was just telling a story and telling a lie rather than kind of falsely speaking to police. Because in that case, he had announced on air that he had been robbed at gunpoint, and he was the hero because he tried to stick up for them. And after that aired, that was when the cops came to him to start their investigation as to what actually happened. So because he didn't kind of initially go and lie to the police, that was what tipped the scale in this case.
Yeah, interesting, because that wouldn't really fly here, because if you lie to the police, you've lied to the police. It doesn't matter if they initiate the conversation. So I did think that was an interesting outcome. I wanted to do a little research. I wasn't able to figure out if that was like typically the way the law is applied, or if they found a carve-out for Ryan Lochte.
I'm not sure. I just and who knows if it was something that they even really wanted to pursue in depth, and whether it was actually worth their time. But either way, I guess the main crux being, okay, who did you tell this story to? Did you lie to the police, or did you lie to the media?
Yeah.
And so he's got, today is his lucky day.
So it's
but
okay
I feel
to
like
lie.
every day is his lucky day.
Yeah, right. It's okay to lie to the media, but as long as the police come calling to you, and not the other way around, you're not really filing like a false report.
It was a little strange.
So, well, that's actually all we have for our little celebrity roundup. I guess we'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll have Domonique back next week, right?
I hope so.
So, guys, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week. Again, you guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @YemYems.
Make sure to give us 5 stars on iTunes and give us some comment and love on YouTube. We'll see you guys later.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio, Instagram me @KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.